Hello, beloved!
Welcome to the Sacred Sister podcast,
where we normalize the magic and sacralize the mundane. In this podcast, we open up dialogue on metaphysical subjects, self-healing tools, expanding consciousness, and deepening awareness.
We're here to support you in co-creating a life full of healing, meaning, and magic.
If you are brand new here, welcome and hello.
We're so excited to have you here.
If you want to know more about what's come before, Season 1 was great for building foundations on spiritual practices. Season 2, we focused on relationships, and now we're in Season 3.
The season of the Empress, where we open deep dialogue with conscious entrepreneurs who are spearheading their sacred mission.
We have an amazing lineup this season, so make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already. Now a bit about us. I'm your host, Britt, a self-study entrepreneur, personal transformation coach, and content creator. I'm prompting you to come to know the self more fully, because when we can acknowledge who we are as unique individuals, our potential to experience life gets a whole lot more interesting.
And I'm your host, Hannah, a life beyond the veil coach, astral priestess, and creator of the Moon Manifestors. And I guide you to connect to your intuitive powers and sync with life's algorithm to manifest their wildest dreams. Because, hey, we're multidimensional beings playing this game of life, so why not make it fun and magical?
We are so grateful that you're here. And together,
we're here to serve as your
Sacred Sister. Let's dive in. Hello, sacred beings, and welcome to another episode of Sacred Sister Podcast. What is your relationship to crystals and crystal healing? Do you have gemstones because you were gifted them or drawn to their appearance, but don't really know how to connect with them on a deeper level, the way that some people talk about when their unique energetic personas are discussed? Doesn't it make sense that when we look at many realms of practice within spirituality, or what some people consider to be New Age spirituality, that there are usually a few camps? Camps that get it and have personal experience with the practice, those who are just getting their feet wet and eager to learn, and those who think we're total wackadoos. Today, we're bridging this communication so that no matter where you are on the spectrum of experience, you'll leave this episode feeling refreshed with new insights to ponder and put to use. Now seems like the perfect time to feature an episode on crystals and crystal healing, and today we're sharing a lot of transformative stories and experiences that we've had in our combined dozens and dozens of years of experience with working deeply with the stones. Since Season 1 began, Hannah and I wondered when this day would come, when we would feature the revolutionary and powerful relationships we're able to have with crystals and crystal healing. Things are getting more and more wild and chaotic in the external realm, as all of us know, and I hope acknowledge. As much as Hannah and I here at Sacred Sister intend for this to be a wellspring of wisdom that our listeners are able to recharge and be flooded with new concepts, ideas, practices, and transformative insight, it's important for us to acknowledge the very real times that we're in. The matrix grid is coming into full and plain sight, showing us reflections of duality, war, hate, prejudice, violence, prompting us more than ever to go within and ask the deeper questions of who am I? What am I purposed for? How may I come into greater awareness of what my highest state of alignment is, and call in the guides, teachers, and tools that will help me get there? How may I contribute and serve my community and humanity as a whole in this wild time? Many of us are experimenting with finding balance, interacting with the external world, and also acknowledging the deep medicine that is to come with dropping out of the matrix and tuning in within, with nature and the natural realm. Are there any particular practices, rituals, or ceremonies that you perform or sit with that help you drop into a deeper sense of awareness? There is a spectrum of range with how much we not only blend and merge our vibratory fields and align our energy with the crystals, but how much time we give ourselves to reflect and truly consider what that bond even is, how it actualizes in your life, and what manifests as a result of this mindful kinship. More than just collecting or hoarding sacred gems because they're pretty, although that's perfectly fine too, how is this bond providing good and helping you pave a new way of mindfully thinking, acting, and intention setting? As coaches and changemakers to our communities, Hannah and I are thrilled to deliver this episode featuring Laura Weigel, whose life and life of her son, William, has radically transformed through gemstone, mineral, and crystal allyship, among many other healing modalities. In the beginning of the episode, Laura is going to share with you her story of how her son's anoxic brain injury at 11 months old would become Will to Wow Jewelry, the crystal jewelry business that has transformed the lives of thousands of people. Laura Weigel is a crystal healing educator, storyteller, and artisan, crafting high-quality gemstone and crystal pieces. She creates custom jewelry for clients looking for a specific range of healing as well. We love featuring female-owned small businesses with a big mission, pulling back the curtains so that maybe, just maybe, the next time that you go to buy a crystal from a big brand or a corporate business, you might consider purchasing from a smaller business owner who's closer to home. You can find Laura's information and offerings in the show notes of this episode. And try taking one of the quizzes on her site. She has a chakra quiz to gauge imbalances and one called Which Crystal Are You? I just took it, and of course I got the blue lace agate, the peaceful, harmonious communicator. And how funny, because I first started working with my own massive throat chakra imbalances with a blue lace agate and angelite bracelet from Will to Wow Jewelry. Laura has been one of those really special people in my life that has transformed me in ways that is honestly kind of hard for me to communicate. And we're just so honored to feature her in this episode. Laura was the person that helped me introduce crystals and crystal healing to my mom. And my mom was also able to really deeply connect with William. We hope that you really enjoy the episode, and if you haven't subscribed already, we invite you to do so if this podcast sounds like a piece of medicine that might be beneficial to you in your life. I also want to extend a big, beautiful welcome to all of our brand new listeners. Sacred Sister Podcast is exploding right now, and it's very, very exciting, and we're so happy to have you here. I want to extend a little piece of mindfulness and let you know that if you do enjoy these episodes, going in and leaving a 5-star rating on our podcast or even a comment letting us know some of the pieces that were really insightful for you and how this podcast is impacting you in your life is like one of the most helpful things that you can do to help this podcast searchability and help more sacred beings find it in the future. If you are curious about supporting Sacred Sister Podcast, that's the way to do it. And we thank you so much for that effort. We hope that you enjoy this episode, and without much more, let's hop over to Hannah's Astrology segment where we're going to take a look at Laura's energetic DNA.
Hello and welcome to the Astrology section. My name is Hannah, and we are going to look into the inner blueprint of Laura, and this is going to be amazing. I just love doing these sections. It's such an honor for me to be allowed and have the pleasure to look into our guests' inner blueprint, which I do through Western tropical astrology. And we can look into their birth chart that is really depending on their birthday, time, and location. And it's very unique to each one of us. And it's basically like an inner blueprint from which we can explore the map of our life. It's like an instructions guideline to this lifetime. So let's look into Laura's blueprint and see how these archetypes that are within her, how they are showing up in her life. And I invite you to remember what I'm saying here so that you can notice that throughout the interview when different parts of it pop up, and you're going to start noticing a lot of synchronicities and patterns. So I invite you to do that. All right, so Sun is in Virgo in Laura's blueprint, and it is in the 12th house. The Sun in Virgo is the sage, organizer, the helper. So really someone who has the power of discernment. This is one of her greatest strengths, to become really aware of what she digests in regards to food, information, her physical environment, just really being aware of how she can make the best use out of the tools that she has, how can she help others with the tools that she has gathered in her life that has helped her. And it's in the 12th house, and the 12th house is the house of Pisces, which is the opposite sign of Virgo. And so she is a helper in the realm of the spirit world, finding tools that help other people heal, not just on a physical level, but also on that spiritual, emotional, subtle realm that we not see with our two eyes, but we see it with our third eye. And then, interestingly enough, she has a grand square in her inner blueprint. And whenever we have a grand square, that shows there is a big challenge that she is meant to overcome in this lifetime. And this big challenge is a engine to propel her forward and leave a mark in this world beyond what she would have been able to if that challenge wasn't there. Usually when I see people with a grand square, there is a traumatic event that has happened in their life where they really feel like I'm stuck in it because, you know, it's a square. It's like a big box that is challenging that we're stuck in. But then the more that they work with it, first of all, accept it and then make the best out of it, they can achieve amazing things in life. Laura's grand square is between the Sun, her North Node, Jupiter, and her South Node. Her North Node is her soul's purpose. This is what her soul wants to experience in this lifetime. It is in Sagittarius in the 3rd house, conjunct her IC. So it has something to do with her sibling. This is the house of siblings. And the 4th house, the IC, is her baby. And it's in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is in the 6th house, in the house of health. So the health of her sibling and her baby is catapulting her towards her soul's purpose. But it is challenging because it is part of the grand square. We can see here, this is part of something that was in her inner blueprint, and she's going to tell us the story, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Because it is catapulting her towards her soul's purpose, which is learning about spirituality, learning about the wisdom of life and seeing the meaning in life. And Sagittarius is looking at the humor in all of it. It's the power of faith, believing that there is a deeper meaning to all of this. And she comes from Gemini, South Node, which is the power of doubt, the power of asking questions, learning, being the student. And it's in her 9th house, you know, in the house of spirituality, in the house of higher knowledge. So she has the power to learn about all of these different systems and then ultimately take all her knowledge and give this to others and heal them and teach them and guide them on their journey. So this is super powerful. And I feel like she has been unlocking her grand square in such a unique and wonderful way. So that is her grand square. Then let's look into her moon sign. Her moon is in Taurus in the 8th house. And I mean, it makes so much sense. Moon in Taurus is so intuitively connected to the physical realm. Taurus, as a fixed earth sign, is the rock. And she's literally connected to rocks. And she can feel into it intuitively. And it's in her 8th house, which means that she understands the subtle realm of the physical reality, how it influences us depending on what items we surround ourselves with, depending on what items we adorn ourselves with, how that influences our energy and can literally change our lives. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about her rising sign. It is in Virgo as well. So she has the Virgo avatar, which is the one who is really aware of how she looks and discerning of what she puts onto herself, what she puts onto her skin, what she puts into her body, what she adorns herself with. And then we have the Mars in there, which makes her a warrior in that as well. So really a very deep strength that I believe that Mars has helped her to keep going no matter what has happened in her life, and to not be afraid and have this inner confidence, this power of discernment that helps her always choose the next best step to take on her journey. So all in all, Laura is a discerning healer who is intuitively connected to the sacred and the mundane. And through her grand challenge in life, she has walked through the darkness into the light and is manifesting her soul's purpose. By healing herself, her family, she is healing others. So that is it from me. And if you're interested in learning more about your own inner blueprint, you can go onto my website, hannahchristensen.com, and book a inner blueprint reading. And we're going to do all of this in more detail for you personally. And so now, without further ado, let's dive into the interview. And Laura is going to guide us on a beautiful meditation. So allow yourself to sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Oh, sacred sister, a kindred flame, may we light one another. From the ashes rise, oh, we rise, oh, again.
Okay, taking a comfortable seat, sitting upright, closing your eyes, and just feeling into your body, taking a couple deep breaths, and just noticing where you might be feeling any tension or resistance, possibly some shallow breathing. And I'm inviting you to just place a hand on your heart center and right below your navel, and to be a little bit more conscious and aware of your breath, taking it in deep to your chest and filling up your belly and slowly releasing it through your nose. Feeling that tension leaving your body. Let's do 2 more of those deep breaths, taking it into your chest, filling up your belly. Let it hold all the way to the top. A nice slow release. Releasing all that tension from your body. Curling your shoulders a couple times, and let's take in another nice deep breath. Filling up your chest, your belly. Hold for 3. 1, 2, 3. Slowly releasing from your nose all that tension from your body. Now that you're feeling more grounded, relaxed, your breathing has settled a bit, just become more aware of your thoughts and imagine them floating by like clouds in the sky. No attachment to them. Just slowly floating by in the sky. and roots from the bottom of your feet, with each breath growing down deeper to that core rock crystal in the center of the earth. The rock crystal that carries all of the intelligence from billions of years. And just tapping into that intelligence. Feeling into any messages that are meant from you to your higher self. And really let that soak in. Bringing your head down low. Another deep breath in. Start to move your arms and your legs around. Slowly open your eyes and come back to presence with your new message.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was beautiful.
You're so welcome.
I really needed that right now. I'm really, I love starting the episodes out like this. Thank you so much. And hi to everyone who's listening from all the corners of the globe that you're tuning into right now. Welcome to another episode of Sacred Sister Podcast. We're so blessed to be sitting here with Laura Thompson Weigel. Hello, Laura.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We are so excited to have you and so excited to finally be having an episode on this topic. I feel like Hannah and I, since season 1, we were like, wow, crystals, when are we going to have the crystal episode? Because it's such a deep part of our own practices and it's been such a transformative practice. It almost seemed, for me at least, like one of those topics that was like too special to open up on until we knew that we had like the perfect person to open up on it with.
Oh, well, thank you. And actually that's how we met, ironically, right? So, I mean, it's perfect. And the timing feels really good to be talking about crystals right now. It's a very transformative time.
Yes, exactly. And we were actually connected before I actually knew who you were, because at my yoga teacher training, Ashley Cottrell, who we've featured on 2 episodes of this podcast, the conscious coupling and connecting with your sacred bleed with Liana Pareja, she gave me a tiger's eye bracelet that was actually from you.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
So interesting. And then I met you later and now you're on the podcast. So it's been this really natural and organic evolution.
Everything happens for a reason.
I love it so much. And I met you through Brittany and we had like Sacred Sister circles together as well. And I just love, and we're going to be talking about all of this on this episode, but I just love the way that you've transformed in your life and that you've really used like the dark stuff, the traumatic stuff, and really transformed that and made it into something beautiful, inspiring, and empowering business for yourself and for the world.
Well, thank you. You know, it's interesting you say that because I was just talking to a family member today about another family member that's kind of stuck, right? Because we all do have those traumas. And I realized in that moment that we actually have a choice. We can stay stuck in our traumas or we can transform them, but nobody can do it for us. It's just such a choice.
Yeah. Can you actually share? I know that Hannah and I know your story very well and how Will to Wow Jewelry came to be, but can you share with our audience what your journey has looked like and how your own crystal healing journey began?
So I feel like I've always been on a spiritual path, honestly, like even from high school on, I've always been a seeker. I've always played with like cards and yoga and just always been on that spiritual path. So when things got hard in my life, which started with fertility issues, my first thought was, to tap into the spirit, like, what is this really teaching me? Kind of like going back to Louise Hay, right? Everything happens for a reason. What is my body trying to tell me? So at that point, I reached out and really dove in deep with an acupuncturist, a doctor of Chinese medicine. And through working with her, I did end up conceiving twins, actually. and through fertility treatments as well. It was a combination. And so I was so grateful to be pregnant, right? I had no idea I would ever be pregnant. And with fertility, your first trimester, you're not released to an OBGYN. You stay with that doctor until you're cleared. And so you're getting actually weekly ultrasounds, like they're really watching you. And every ultrasound, the baby looks fine. The baby looks great. The baby's growing. The very last ultrasound before I was to be released, it was the babies look fine. And I was just like, babies, did you say plural? Like I was so overwhelmed. I immediately called my mom and I was like, that's it. You have to come help me. Like, this is babies. What am I going to do? So needless to say, I took the pregnancy very seriously. It was such an honor. I really cared for my body and took care of it. So then I got pregnant with my third when my babies then were only 5 months old. And my third, I like to say, just came naturally, right? Just was a blessing. And so then my babies, the boy twin, William, hence the name, William had a brain injury. He was found not breathing in his crib. Apparently he had vomited and aspirated and it was lodged in his throat, so we didn't see it. And that resulted in a severe brain injury. An anoxic brain injury is what they call it, a lack of oxygen to the brain. So it was very traumatic because I had Katie, who wasn't quite one, William was on life support, and I was pregnant with Jack. So that's all three of their names. It was very surreal. And I instantly, like we just did that meditation about tuning in to different messages. And this message came to me very clearly when Will was on life support was that I need to look at this from a bird's eye view. I need to take myself out of my body or I won't be able to survive. I need to take myself out of my body and look at it from this bird's eye view. Like this was a planned event. That was the only way I could survive. It was kind of my coping skill. And so then I reached back out to my acupuncturist, and she was so kind. She came to the house actually to work on and needle William. This was after we got back from rehab in LA Children's Hospital. And it was very interesting because when she first came in, she brought crystals with her, which I wasn't expecting at all. I was just expecting her to needle him. And he was laying on the bed, and as soon as this big clear quartz crystal even came near him, his whole body had this reaction. And I was just like, oh my gosh, and that I didn't understand it at all. So it was very interesting. And she was like, he's not ready for that crystal. It's like, it was overwhelming to his energy. He was so sensitive and just so open, right? Especially with a brain injury. So then I got to watch his reaction to different crystals, more subtle, more calming crystals, and watch his body calm to them. And so that moment sent me on this journey. And then interestingly enough, when she left my house, a book fell off my bookshelf in my bedroom, and it was about crystals. So I was like, oh my gosh, like hit me in the head. So that started my journey. That is really what led me on my path. And Kim then empowered me, the acupuncturist, to raise money for Will to start making the jewelry. And then by being engrossed with the different healing properties and learning about them and making the jewelry, and not just a regular jewelry, but for intention for Will, for intention for you. And then my mom Reiki's each piece. And so it just became a really healing process for myself, honestly. Yeah. To help to heal other people. So that's my story. That's the Will to Wow story. And that's where the name came from. His initials are Wow. And I would say that to him when he was in the hospital. I was like, William, you have the will. You have that fire within to wow us all. You have the will to wow. And it just seemed like the perfect name for the jewelry so that we can tap into our own inner will to heal.
Gosh, that brings tears into my eyes.
Me too.
So beautiful.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing in such deep depth and vulnerability what your experience has been like. I have to say, like, before coming to know you and like finding a small business that was here in Las Vegas. This is why I'm so passionate about talking with people about supporting local small businesses, because when you really take the time to understand like what the root mission of a small business is, it is so potent to know that you are helping someone fund something in their lives that is literally like it's a huge variance from what you would be doing otherwise, because then what Will to Wow Jewelry goes on to fund is the naturopathic remedies that Will uses so that he doesn't have to be on so many prescriptions as he would be otherwise, right?
Exactly. And by all these natural remedies, I'm able to keep him off meds so that he can have regular bowel movements on his own, some alternative therapies, including acupuncture, massage, or things that really help support healing, right? And my biggest feeling that helps him heal, and maybe everybody, is being able to tap into your joy and play. So in the beginning for me, I was very regimented about the healing. And the more I realized, oh, it's that laughter that's healing him. Oh, it's this adventure that's healing him. Oh my gosh, it's me playing with him, and doing airplay. That's what's truly healing. Because I don't know that if a body can't feel that joy, how do we heal? That's really what he's taught me.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize I'm going to cry so much in this episode.
That's why I like to post the videos of him laughing, because I'm like, how can you look at this kid that is laughing uncontrollably, where I have to tell him to breathe, that can't move or eat on his own or drink on his own, but he can still tap into his joy.
And he's such a beautiful soul. When I met him, like his aura, like you can tell, like it's like he's an old soul that came into this world of like, I'm gonna teach everybody to see the good in everything.
Yeah. Like he's actually healing us, and to go back, like my whole background with special ed is my youngest brother that I'm 7 years older, Stephen. And he, of course, had special needs. He was nonverbal and had a different gait, mentally retarded. We thought maybe it was cerebral palsy with mental retardation growing up. And then once we had genetic testing done, we realized that he has something called Angelman syndrome, which is so interesting. Because my mom would always tell us when we were kids, they're like, no, he's sent from heaven. He's an angel to teach us about compassion and love. And then when he really got the label Angelman syndrome, we were like, oh, of course, he really is our angel.
Wow. You know what? With the way that this conversation is taking off, I just had a realization that I was like, Laura is one of those special people that just coming into contact with her activates that bridge from like the physical world to the realm of the unseen. It just happens so naturally. And that was actually something that I wanted to focus on in this interview, was that crystal healing for me was one of the great practices that started to bridge that physical world and the unseen realm. And what an extraordinary occurrence to happen in human life, especially because we're not really surrounded by like a massive society that supports these claims, but this is what we're going to be getting into in this episode. And it can be kind of hard for us to like process what that magic is. What a beautiful activation that we're able to have in our lives whenever we're just having those bird's eye view. I think you even said third eye view. That's what I heard at least. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful way to look at it, because it's so true. The third eye chakra is about expanding perception, expanding awareness, and literally learning how to be that overseeing force that like perceives things in a completely expanded view.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, Brittany, but yeah, it was coming to me like the bird's eye view, but of course that is our third eye view. Of course. Like I just had this massive aha moment. That's incredible.
I just wanted to really talk about what the crystals can activate within us. So, I think of utilizing third eye chakra activating crystals and the things that I've witnessed in my own life, how it's expanded my own perception and awareness, how I've been able to reconnect with my mom and connect with my grandfather who passed away 10 years ago. And I really wanted to start opening up that topic with you of how do crystals do this for us? How do they give us these access points to these literal dimensions of frequency that are so outside of what we're used to experiencing as humans?
Well, I feel like crystals work in three really potent ways. And I think of it as like what Einstein used to say with what was it? M3 squared. So they work with our energy, and they work with our colors, and they also work with like the sacred geometry. For really easy purposes, I feel like they work with our different chakra centers, which we have thousands in our body, but there's the 7 main ones. So like with our third eye, we could pick crystals just based on the color for that third eye. I actually like to do it different, to be honest with you, because the crystals are always vibrating at the exact same energy. But our energy is very fluid. Our energy goes up and down. We can wake up in a great mood and our energy can be up high. Then we can get in an argument with somebody and our energy can go down low. But when we're working with the crystal, our energy is working to meet that of that crystal. So if we give that crystal a job per se, right? Because it's just energy. So if we actually take like this lapis lazuli right here and we say, because they have many different jobs that they can do. But if we say, I want to expand my third eye, I want to open up to new and different perceptions, then we're giving it that job and then we're placing it on that center. And of course, it also has the color as well. I feel like I've gotten to the point, like when I have a course in crystals, and the first thing I tell people to do is to not read the books like I did, because I feel like it just overwhelms us with so much energy and it takes us out of our third eye, out of our feeling, out of our connection. So I think it's more important to actually see what you're drawn to and then read about it, because more often than not, it's what you need. They carry all the energy from the earth, like in the meditation from the beginning, connecting to this information from billions and billions of years old and amplifying our intention and what we can do.
Are you ready to connect deeper with your intuitive powers, feel confident in your decision making, and manifest your dream life and business with less stress and more flow? If you are, a heck yes, I got something for you. The Moon Manifestor membership. Learn the algorithm of life. Find out what portals of opportunity are opening up for you each month, so you no longer have to second guess yourself and try to force things to happen, but you can playfully up-level your life while enjoying the journey. And just like Pamela, one of the Moon Manifestors, who says, the Moon Manifestors have influenced my life in every way. Honestly, my life has become so much less stressful and so much more in the flow. I love seeing amazing things manifest for each of us. So what are you waiting for? Join the Moon Manifestors and transform your life in a fun and magical way. For only $39 per month, it's like your spiritual gym membership. So go to hannahchristiansen.com and sign up for the Moon Manifestors. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you there. May you live your dream life with less stress and more flow, because you are worth it.
Connecting to this information from billions and billions of years old and amplifying our intention and what we can do.
Yes. And I feel like crystals are like little conscious beings in a sense. They're different from our consciousness because we are, as humans, we live in 3D, but they live in 1D. They can't move around. They just allow themselves to really surrender and just be and morph into different forms throughout millions of years and really like slowly create different forms and different colors within themselves. But they still have a consciousness to them, and they're still part of us because ultimately we are all one and we all come from the same source. So I feel like seeing them as like an extension of ourselves, as well as like little 1D beings that we can like really charge with intention, and we can allow them to be our helpers.
Right. And think about all the knowledge that they carry within them, and so that's why it's so important, how do you start to use crystals? Well, you can first just start by meditating with them, laying them on your energy centers, in Shavasana, keeping them around your house, just even as a reminder, right? Like when I see my huge chunk of black tourmaline next to my computer, I know that this is where I focus, this is where I ground, and the intention is that it clears that electromagnetic smog that my computer is emitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I just started thinking about with this conversation is how it's such a beautiful thing when we are able to tap into this realm of thinking where we think of them as little allies or little friends or little beings of consciousness. And I just started thinking, for anyone that's outside of the realm of this practice, I really would love to invite in some of the way that we can get to that place, because I'm sure there are some people that are so grounded here in the physical world that maybe they haven't started having these connections yet. And when we go back to the chakra system, there are these two currents that Anodea Judith, the matriarch of the chakra system, talks about. And one is the current of manifestation, which is energy going downward from the crown, moving downward and helping us to ground. And then the other is the current of liberation, which is taking the access points that we naturally have in the lower three chakras and moving upwards. So expanding our energy to begin conceptualizing how we can even connect with the third eye, with the throat, with the etheric realms that we can't connect with as easily in the physical world unless we actively have an introduction to it. So if you are listening to this right now, and you might even be rolling your eyes more spiritual woo talk or whatever, just understand that these things are plain to see. We're able to look at our own selves and say, okay, what do I feel naturally more connected with this physical world and these lower centers? And it's harder for me to access those higher realms of thought, or do I usually hang out in the higher realms of thought and it's kind of harder for me to ground down and get what this physical world is about?
And also, additionally to that, it's crystals are being used in technology all the time.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And, it's being used in our everyday life, and in science, everybody knows that crystals hold information, and you can charge them with information. And I mean, that's what it's being used in our phones and in our computers and our laptops,
Well, think about just the original watches, the quartz watches, because it also is the keeper of time as well. So, and then that's why, see, the main property of quartz is silicone. That's why they call it Silicon Valley, because then they started to create and grow their own crystals. So they're not natural crystals, but they work in the same way.
Yeah. So, I love that you just mentioned that, because I want to talk about this too. It's getting really popular to have crystals. And I remember too, when I started on my spiritual journey and I first went into Psychic Eye here, a crystal shop here in Las Vegas. And I saw all these different colored crystals. I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. They're so pretty. Yeah. And I really allowed myself to feel into all whatever was talking to me, whatever was calling me. I took one of those little tumbled crystals. So I ended up having so many of those, 30, 40, 50, I don't even know. And afterwards I read about, okay, what are they good for? Or usually they give you a little pamphlet that already says a few of the properties. I think it's just so fascinating, because now I kind of shifted from quantity to quality, where I say, okay, I'm going to rather focus on one bigger piece that is or it can be a smaller piece too, but something that's really special, that I say, okay, I'm going to particularly work with that instead of having 50 of those. But also additionally to that, I feel because it became so modern, it kind of shifted to a lot of people want to sell it. A lot of people want to have the crystals. And I remember my parents came over here one time and they went to a Native American reserve, and they sold them what they thought were crystals, but they were actually man-made. I think they were quartz, but they're just colored, or some of them were glass, and they were colored and made to look like crystals. And I wanted to ask you about that. What, how can we work with those kind of crystals that are kind of fake? They're not created by the earth. They're more man-made created.
Well, I don't know if the question would be, how can we work with them? I wouldn't work with them. They can be pretty or as a decoration, but as far as working with them for spiritual growth or tapping in or opening your chakras or whatever your intention is with them, I would prefer real crystals, honestly, truly from the earth, because of that divine knowledge you know, and I forgot earlier when I said what the crystals are made of, the colors and the energy. It's also the minerals, which there's some really good books out there that will break down the minerals also that are in each one and what they do for our body. So I just wanted to mention that because I forgot that part in the M3 squared, but I don't really know that it would be necessary to even try to work with one that's not real.
Totally. And I mean, at some point it comes from the earth in a sense, because it's still
True.
something from the earth, but it's like
True.
manipulated to look a certain way, or it's treated in a certain way to make it seem like it's something else than what it is.
Right. And then what's the intention behind that? There is one manipulated crystal that I do love, and it's that angel aqua aura. And it's manipulated with an intention to connect with your angels. So I like that. And it's manipulated with another element from the earth. So what they do is they take clear quartz and they'll heat it with either platinum or silver or gold. And it'll come up with these different iridescent shades. So it technically is from the earth. It is manipulated, but with another element from the earth and with the intention of really connecting more deeply with our angels.
Yeah.
So that's when I do like, actually.
Yes. And that makes a lot of sense because it comes down to the intention.
Yeah.
Why did someone create it? Did someone create it to make it look like a more expensive piece of crystal? Because then it's like, what is the intention that we would work with in this crystal? It's like, all right, I'm going to fake it to look a certain way that I'm not, which is like an inauthenticity. But if it's manipulated from a good intention that says, I want you to help you to connect more with your angels. And I love that you just mentioned that angel aura quartz, because that's the bracelet that I received from you.
Oh, is it really? That's funny.
And when I visited my mom in Germany, she was really, really sad to see me leave again. You know, it's always hard for her to know that her daughter is living on the other side of the world. And I was wearing that bracelet and I felt it was talking to me of like, leave this with her. So I gave it to her and she loves it so much. And she says it helps to connect more with the divine. It helps to feel me more around because it connects us both. It's just so beautiful because that's literally the only crystal that my mom works with. It comes from an older generation and she hasn't been introduced to crystal work or anything like that. What you could call a non-believer of crystal healing. But because it comes from me and because I gave it to her with an intention, she sees it as very, very special and she honors it so special and it's helping her.
I love that. That is so sweet. I'm so glad you shared that story. You know, that kind of reminds me, like, my dad is a retired CPA, very analytical, never into crystals, really doesn't quite understand what I do, right? But he chose to retire, of all places, in Sedona, which is where I love to go get my crystals. And so my dad's so sweet. He's like, you know, whatever you need to do with your rocks, honey, like I'll support you. And that's cute that you're playing with your rocks. So I gave him that book to read. It's more sciencey, and I knew I wouldn't even read it because I'm just feeling into them. Like I just know what I feel, what I'm attracted to, Will's reaction, how they work. Science stuff, my mind starts to go, well, whatever, you know, I don't really, but he read it all. He read the whole thing. He's like, all right, there's something to this. It's actually something to this. And I was like, okay, there was a little confirmation that I needed from the non-believers. So
yes. And it's so important to bridge that science and spirituality too, because each one of us comes from a different side. And for some of us, just as you, Britt, were just explaining, some of us, it's so much easier to tune into those higher chakras and to those higher realms and come more from that place, whereas other comes more from the lower chakra place. And so how can we like find both of them? Because it's truth in both of them. And they're just different perspectives on how to look on the same topic, just from different perspectives.
Exactly. When you were saying about the coming down and going up, I was like, yeah, you meet in the heart center and that's where you connect the two things so that you can really understand that even though someone else is having a different perspective than you, you're still fully able to connect your heart space with them and like just witness them, even if you haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah, that's that unconditional love.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. So beautiful. And since we were talking about the angel aura quartz, I got an angel aura quartz from you too, Laura.
The necklace.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's the piece I've gotten more comments and questions on than anything ever before. It's this beautiful angel aura quartz shard that's like got these raw edges. It's so beautiful. And I actually never knew about treated crystals. And I love that we just opened up that dialogue on that.
And that you both have one. Of course, it was just meant to be. And to interject before you go on, your angel aura quartz, your necklace, is also a record keeper. So it's super, yes. It's also, those are when you see little like little striations on the sides, they're little record keepers. Each one is, I think, like another 1,000 years or something like that.
Oh, so beautiful. That's such a beautiful thing. And the thing that I wanted to even mention about that necklace in the first place was that was the first activation that I had when I connected with my grandfather for the first time. It was probably like 6 years after he passed or 7 years after he passed. And again, like I said at the beginning of the episode, it was one of those moments where I can't say that I used to really tune into those higher realms very often, or have reason to, or have stories that really convicted me that anything like that was possible or real. And so experiencing something like that was my first sort of bridge into that. Oh my gosh, what is this access point that I'm literally discovering that the human experience is something so much more vast than I ever had knowledge of before.
Yes. And it's all about creating meaning around it too. You know, we can make our life so much more meaningful and magical when we allow ourselves to believe. And especially when it's something that has a good intention to it. Obviously, if I just wanted to believe in like this is the fake one that my parents got me. And, you know, I know that they come from a good intention. They wanted to give me this gift, but it's like, it's so funny because I just don't have a connection to those stones, even though I know it comes from the earth, but I know that it has been manipulated in a way to look like that, so that it looks like an amethyst, but it's not one. And I just don't like that intention to it. And seeing like, okay, this comes from a sustainable place. I know this comes locally. It comes from someone that I trust and honor and love and support. It's such a different feel to it. And it's so important. And that's something that I had to realize too, because definitely in the beginning part, I just bought crystals from the store and I didn't really know where they were from and what really came from that. And just becoming aware of there are different qualities to crystals. And when we feel like maybe we have worked with a crystal before and we're like, I didn't feel anything, maybe it was just not the right crystal at that time. Maybe it was the quality wasn't right. Maybe the intention that was in that crystal in the first place wasn't right. And maybe it was just not the right crystal to work with at this point.
Yeah, can I add to that? Because that angel aura quartz necklace, as a matter of fact, I had never even felt the call to wear it. And it had just been sitting on my jewelry stand forever. And as I was packing to go to a Spirit Weavers gathering for my first time, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put it on. Like, who freaking knows? Let's just see. And I didn't take it off the entire gathering because that first opening fire ceremony at Spirit Weavers gathering is when I had the connection with my grandfather.
I remember that story. That was very, very powerful.
So powerful, because I'm thinking about my grandpa and I'm like, wow, I wonder if I could maybe connect with him. I think that's what this stone is about. And across the way, a woman named Balin Elspeth, she's an amazing medicine woman and serves community greatly, opens her mouth with the drum that she's sitting on and she starts singing, "Grandfather, we're calling on you, need your guidance now." And I just started, my eyes got huge and I started bawling my eyes out. I covered my face with my jacket and I was like, all right, this shit's about to go down. Like, these are the gateways, right? These are the portals when we really allow ourselves to. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. And I love that we're touching on this. I didn't anticipate sharing the intricacies of that story, but let's talk about that now. Let's talk about the depth of intention, and how do we do that with something as commercialized and trending. And it's amazing that crystals are being called to the forefront, but also we're starting to realize, oh, I need to be conscious of how this is sourced and how this is mined. But also, how do I connect with it on a way deeper level than just like physically holding a crystal and being like, energy feels so good, which is great. And it's probably going to get deeper if you allow it to. But how do we let it get deep?
Right. So much of we're being called for so much discernment right now, aren't we?
Yes.
You know, and really to tune in and to really listen, because it is great. It's being called to the forefront for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. So they are meant to be a part of our lives right now, collectively. But we have to do it with judgment and discernment and really in tuning in. So how do you use them to really connect really deeply? I personally have been finding that I like to sleep with them. I like to set an intention, and I actually like to sleep with one under my pillow, on the headboard of my bed, my nightstand. I mean, it might sound a little excessive. I realize it now as I'm describing it, but yeah, you guys could take that all kinds of ways. I like to sleep with my crystals.
Yeah, totally.
But that's when I feel as though I'm the deepest, right? And doing that dream work, you know? So that's where I'm really called to work with mine now. And on a really deep level, I'm also called to make grids with them and really tapping into that sacred geometry. And of course, meditating with them as well. But I feel like when I start to use them on a deeper level, like setting an intention, a really deep intention for, say, a client or for myself, this is calling me to step into faith.
Yeah.
To me, that's really powerful. It's about like really letting something go and walking into faith.
Yeah, that's truly the most beautiful way of working with crystals. I feel like it's like calling us to faith. Because, you know, this is why we were talking about how do non-believers work with crystals, and we don't even have to have the faith in order for it to work, which is so fun.
So true.
Which is amazing, because, you know, we know
true.
about the placebo effect, where it's like when we believe something, then it's going to be effective for us, more likely. Yeah. But it's with crystals, it's like it can be effective even if we don't necessarily have an established faith with them, but they can call us towards that faith. And I have this story with my great cousin in Germany, and he is in his late 70s, and he had a stroke a few years ago. And I visited him, and he was really depressed. He was really sad. He was thinking that he's gonna die, and he was not feeling well at all. And while I was visiting him, I had this necklace. It was a little clear quartz, and I just wrapped copper wire around it and made it into a little necklace for myself, because I knew also about copper and how it like helps with the charge.
And conducts the energy, helps it move. Yeah.
And that's also completely scientific with the whole copper and the conduction. And so I felt really called, okay, I want to give him this crystal. I just felt like I needed to give it to him. So I unwrapped it and I gave him the stone, and I said, the stone is going to help you heal, and it's going to help you connect with me. And whenever there is something that you're afraid of, you can always, you know, hold the stone and ask for help. And it was funny because I never talked about any of this stuff with my great cousin before. Like, he's in his late 70s. Like, we never had any spiritual conversation whatsoever. I don't even know his spiritual beliefs. I don't even know if he believes in God, or like, I know he's not religious. So it was really interesting because I was literally guided to do that, because it was completely out of my comfort zone to even like open up about this and like share this with him. And I didn't want to do it in front of my parents either, because I felt like they would
embarrassed,
kind of judge it, or they would just not understand it. So I waited until I just had a moment with him, and I was like, just like make it like really a sacred moment to give him the stone. He's like, oh, thank you. And he put it in his back pocket. And then I had no idea what's going to happen with that and through it. And a year later, I came back and visited him, and he was feeling much better. And he said to me, and he took me to the side away from the others. And he said to me, I want to show you something. And he reaches into his back pocket and he pulls out the crystal. And he says, I have it always with me.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That reminds me of a story I have that I've not shared with anybody because of the same reason, Hannah. It's like, do people understand? Do they not understand? I had a second cousin's husband that had cancer, and it's stage 4. It was looking terminal. It was spreading. It started in the liver. And she was like, what can we do for him? Because when we get desperate, we'll do anything, right? And then we start to open up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I suggested just some shungite for him to wear around his neck, and to put in his water, as an elixir, because it's another way we can use our crystals is by taking the energy from them inward. I love using the elixirs. And it was gone within 2 months.
Wow.
2 months, it was gone. She's like, it's gone. It's still gone. It's gone. Cancer's gone.
It's amazing.
So beautiful.
Did he know about it?
He did know about it. Yeah, he knew about it. And he wore it around his neck. He put it in his water. So he had to have known, right?
Yeah. Like he knew the healing properties.
I don't know how much she shared with him, to be honest with you. I sent a little card saying what shungite did and why that was the crystal I felt called that he needed. Yeah, I mean, they're my second cousin. I don't really talk to them that much. Once in a while, she'll say he still drinks his shungite water. And then I'm like, gosh, I need to drink my shungite water, like.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I think you gave my mom a piece of shungite too.
I did, yeah.
And I actually took that from her house whenever I packed up that house and I moved my dad out of there. And now I have it and it's here.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's listening to this right now who is interested in learning more about the ways that water carries codes and carries information, I think it's called The Secret Life of Water, or the Secret of Water, The Life of Water, something like this. I know it's available on Gaia.com, and it's the experiments that, is it Dr. Emoto?
Dr. Emoto.
Dr. Emoto, yeah, the Emoto experiments. And just know that these are documented out there, and it's only woo to a certain point. I am calling in beautiful beings with a deep, burning, yearning desire to know themselves more fully, to feel fortified and faith-filled in the awareness that you came here with a purpose that only you can fulfill in your own unique way. For those who seek to cultivate their own resonant spiritual practices, I created the Sacred Self online course series just for you, to share intuitive tools that help one bloom from within. Doing deep self-study and introspection work has completely changed my life. I grew up in 18 different homes and 9 different schools across the Las Vegas Valley. I was intensely bullied and coped with moving a lot by morphing myself into whoever I thought other people wanted me to be. And it never, ever worked. I was anxious, a crippling perfectionist with a pretty severe identity crisis too. I know this isn't what your story is, but maybe some of you can see yourself in me. One of the most valuable things that I've learned in my 5 years of tireless, passionate self-study is that no one has the answers for me necessarily. That in order to transform, it's my job to prioritize the time that I need to sit with my gifts and my triggers, my stuff, myself. In the 3-part Sacred Self series, I guide you to create a sacred space for sitting in self-reflection. Invite in devotional gestures by creating a candle of presence, and gain self-awareness through self-study, utilizing Sacred Svadhyaya, a journaling practice. I had a client tell me recently, wow, I never really realized how much I glossed over the concept of self-acceptance. It's really like the most important thing. My sentiments exactly. When we can invite in the awareness that maybe, just maybe, our challenges have come as learning opportunities for us to grow wisdom and strength from, our lives begin to change, no matter the challenge, no matter the hardship. If this feels like a resonant step for you, I invite you to join me in the Sacred Self online course series. Use code SACREDSIS for 20% off when you purchase the 3-course bundle. Visit the online course tab on britlinlabeouf.com to enroll, and remember, you are the healer you've been looking for, but are you giving yourself the time and space to do those deep dives? It's only woo to a certain point.
To a certain point. I mean, you can have so much fun with it. You can put your essential oil, a crystal in your water. You can put it out underneath the full moon that's coming out and put your intention. I mean, my thinking is, why not? I mean, is it really going to hurt anything?
Exactly.
Like, have some fun with it and play and invite that joy into your life.
Let's talk about that, actually, about charging crystals. I feel like I've learned so much from you over the years. I remember the first time I saw you pointing like a clear quartz at a crystal and you were talking about programming a crystal. I was like, what is this? Like, oh my gosh, there's so many ways that we can connect so deeply with this practice just by getting a little bit curious.
And it's just so simple. Like, for example, pointing the crystal, I was just charging or programming, but in simpler terms, I mean, we're just giving them a job, right? It's the same as me saying, hey, Katie, will you take this laundry to the laundry room, not up to my bedroom, you know? Because my son Jackson has autism. If I say take the laundry up to my bedroom, the message might get messed up and it might end up in the dining room. I'm not really sure. So charging a crystal is just so that you give it that specific job, so it knows what to do, so that you don't end up in the laundry room instead of your bedroom, you know, that you end up doing what you want it specifically to do. And like Hannah was saying, how they're like little beings, I feel like it helps us to connect even more deeply with them. And when we're holding that crystal, we've given them a specific job or intention, we've programmed it, but then we're reminded each time as well as what our intention is.
Exactly.
What do you feel about having to release negative energies from crystals? You know, when there's like, you know, sometimes a crystal can feel heavy with the energy, or you might have received a crystal from a thrift store. How do you go about cleansing that? And, you know, when do you know when it's time to cleanse it?
And charge.
Right. Cleanse and charge, because you can do them together under the full moon. Well, there's many ways. My favorite way is you can do sage. I like to do like a liquid or a sage spray because of the kids and the animals. I don't really do the smoke as much unless nobody's home, but you can pass them through because sage is a cleanser, right? It just cleanses of the energy. The full moon is my favorite. So you could also do the sun. The reason people do the full moon over the sun is because the sun over time can bleach out your crystals. And it's just a little bit more damaging. Whereas the full moon is really just a reflection of the sun anyway.
Yeah.
So we can use the full moon to charge and cleanse the crystals all together, which is really my favorite way to do it. But you can also simply even just run them underneath some water with the intention that anything that's not serving this crystal just wash down the drain. Some people, more gentle crystals that can't go underwater can be put like in salt, because salt is very cleansing. If a crystal's feeling really dense and heavy, like it's picked up even, you know, this is a whole nother topic, but some people have felt like they've picked up dark entities and be carrying some extra heaviness. Some people bury their crystals for a while in the earth. So there's many ways that you can cleanse your crystal. But my favorite is the moon or the sage, to be honest with you. And then I think after you cleanse it, then you give it the job. Now, there is a little controversy over that. It's like, well, crystals have divine knowledge, so why do I need to give it a job? But we've kind of covered the reasons why. It reminds us of our intention. It gives them a more specific job so that they don't, you know, end up in the dining room instead of the laundry room. So, you know, by tuning into it, you know, like Hannah was saying, crystal feels kind of heavy or it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
So.
I even had a client that I gave a crystal to, and I gave her a rose quartz, really, really beautiful, raw rose quartz. And she was working on love and forgiveness. And then she had another reading with a different healer, and that healer told her to throw away that crystal because it was evil or something. And I found it so interesting. And she told me, and I wrote her back and said, what do you feel? What is your feeling with that crystal? Do you feel like it's helping you? Do you feel like it feels heavy? It feels stuck? Like, do you want to give it away? Do you want to cleanse it? Like, what do you feel? And really helped her to like tune into her own wisdom, because ultimately, we can have so many readings done by so many different healers and different people, and they can tell us all kinds of things of what's important for us or necessary for us to do. But ultimately it comes down to, how does it feel to us?
Oh my gosh, I love what you just said. The whole purpose is ultimately is to keep tuning in and to tune into our divine knowledge, to our spirit, because we actually have the capacity to know everything. So if we can, to me, a true healer is to empower somebody to tune in. How does it feel to you?
Yeah, exactly. And who puts out that empowering narrative that says constantly check back in with yourself. How do you feel about this? That like doesn't give super definitive black and white answers about much of anything. I think that was one of the big pieces of wisdom that my yoga teacher, Annie Carpenter, gave me, because her answer to most questions is, it depends. And then we go deeper into it. And I love that you mentioned that discernment piece, because it is such a relevant, I don't know that we've ever been faced as a collective with a more loud message of discernment and tuning into ourselves, and not just allowing ourselves to be taken with the thought streams of others that are around us. It's imperative.
Have you guys seen Bhante, the monk that sometimes comes and does the speakings around in Vegas? Bhante?
I don't think so.
His whole talk was about how the teaching of being non-judgmental really bothers him. He was like, we teach our children, make good judgments. Make a judgment. Do you cross the street or do you not cross the street? But then spirituality, we taught everybody that that's a bad thing, or that we need to use the word discernment instead. But it's about coming back in and making those discernments or judgments for ourselves. What is right? Don't step out in front of a bus.
I was just going to say, what an important piece, because when you think of judge, when you think of the power that words have, you think of a judge, this very solid figure that deciphers right or wrong. And in my experience, the word judge has gotten somewhat of a negative connotation. When you talk about judgment, it's this weird thing. Same thing with ego. So many people think ego is like a bad word, and you want to always get rid of the ego without actually acknowledging that each of us, it's imperative that we really get close and get friendly with our own ego, because we must, even in this spiritual age where it's like we're trying to, melt away some aspects of the ego that may put us on pedestals or think about ourselves in a certain way that's more than other people. Yes, we may be trying to gain awareness and cleanse ourselves of those, but it's also imperative to realize that we have our ego identification is how we are to forge our path in this human experience. And it's imperative that we get super friendly and aware of the different facets of the ego.
Because ultimately we can only be truly aligned with our path when we are aware of our ego, because that's ultimately like, this is the avatar that we've incarnated into. And much as there's, it's so beautiful, and me as an Aquarius rising, I love to have that bird's eye view of everything, but also like honoring my own emotions, honoring my own, like, what does my body need? What does Hannah need? Because there is so much that maybe would be ideal, but it's not what she wants. So we can put ourselves into such different situations where we feel like, I have to like swallow my own truth or swallow my ego because I just want to be this like really healing and gentle voice. But ultimately it comes down to, are we authentic then? Because authenticity is the ultimate of the age of Aquarius that we're moving into, whereas like the
Mm-hmm.
age of Pisces was all about embodying that forgiveness and that peace and that non-judgment, unconditional love piece, which is still has its place, obviously. But now we're moving into age of Aquarius, where we realize, wait, what do I want? What is my inner blueprint? Who am I? What is my purpose here in life? And also, what makes me happy?
Mm-hmm.
What makes me feel authentic? What makes me aligned to my truth?
And
Right.
how do I integrate it with the community?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just like how I was saying, we all need a different crystal. We all need a different diet. We all need a different exercise regimen. We all need different herbs or medicines to be healthy. There's not a box that we can fit into.
Yes.
It's kind of like what you were saying, Brittany. It's about like going up and coming down, but meeting in the heart.
Mhm.
So it's about tapping into our egos there just to keep us safe.
Yeah.
But we also, our spirit and our inner knowing is who we authentically really are. So we need to meet the ego and the spirit right there in the heart space.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So beautiful. I'm like crying right now. This is such a beautiful conversation.
Another piece from astrology is that there's Pisces, and the opposite of that is Virgo. And Virgo, your sun in Virgo, Virgo is about the power of discernment. That's the true power of Virgo, is about knowing, what do I digest? What do I take in? Food-wise, but also information-wise. Also the objects that are around me. Everything from the physical earth, from my physical realm. How do I digest that? How do I integrate that? That's the power of Virgo. And which
I'm teaching the right thing then.
Yes, you are. And so, we want to find that balance between the two. The Pisces, the unconditional love, no boundaries, all is well. We are all one. And then also realizing, wait, there are times where we have to be discerning. We want to go into also the power of discernment and find the balance. That's the polarity of life. It's not one or the other, black or white. It's black and white. It's both of them together. And just like your teacher was saying, Britt, it depends.
Yeah, because everyone is so different.
Yeah.
And to even try to generalize or make things less complex, we really do ourselves and the human experience and the world around us a disservice whenever we try to oversimplify and like give everyone the same prescription. And on this note, I would love to touch on, I love, Laura, how you just said how everyone needs a different crystal. And I even started thinking about asking the three of us what our first crystal was. And then I was like, well, would it be the first physical crystal or the first piece of like actively wearing a crystal piece of jewelry? Because I know when I got my first hematite and pyrite bracelet from you, and I really started wearing it around. Tiny story time. I was in San Francisco because I was going there all the time to do my yoga teacher trainings with Annie Carpenter, who I just mentioned, my yoga teacher. And I was taking the subway for the first time, or like the buses for the first time. And I was in an unfamiliar city and an unfamiliar place. And I remember looking down at this talisman and thinking, oh, I have the power not to get annoyed. I have the power not to get anxious. I have the power not to be soaked up in negative energy. And I was allowing the hematite connection to be made in that. And it just got me thinking, like, some people might need different things too, whether they have a crystal that they connect with there at home, or if it might be really helpful for them, especially at the beginning of a crystal practice, to wear something that they're able to actively look at and serve as a little reminder to connect throughout the day.
Oh, I love that you just mentioned talisman too. I was just looking up the word origin of talisman, and it means performing a rite. I perform a rite. It's a consecration and ceremony. And how beautiful is that? Because that's what kind of like the charging of the crystals truly are. They're performing a rite for us, just as you were saying.
And you're performing a ceremony with it. It's this connection. And that's what, Britt was saying. How do I connect more deeply with my crystals? Those ceremonies, the intention, Energy goes where our attention goes, right? So the
Yeah.
more attention we can give to something, the more energy flows there, which is why I love moon ceremonies, for example. My first
Exactly.
crystal was an amethyst when I moved away, and it was a geode that my mom had given me. And I was moving at that point from Indiana to Colorado because I lived in Colorado for a few years after college. And I had no idea why she even gifted it to me. I was like, what, did you just find a rock around the house to give me for my parting gift? Like,
It's so
I
funny
didn't
that
even
you,
understand.
yeah, it's so funny that you said that, because that just reminds me of when I lived in LA. I rented a room with a wonderful soul friend of mine, and I had no idea she was my soul friend. I met her through Facebook, and it was this amazing, just synchronicity, everything. And she was this lady who was living in Beverly Hills adjacent, and I rented her room, and she had, from her boyfriend who has crossed over, he collected crystals, beautiful crystals, big geodes. And she didn't really have a connection with it. She didn't really know much about them, but she still thought they're very beautiful, and they reminded her of him. And so she had them all around her house. And that was literally the first time for me to come in contact with crystals. Interestingly enough, she's a Pisces sun, and she was also the first one who introduced me into tarot, because she always brought in a tarot reader regularly to do tarot. And I was like, just like watching, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. And my North Node is in Pisces, so I'm meant to like dive into that Pisces realm. And I'm coming from a place where I was like not necessarily tuned into that realm, at least with crystals or tarot. I had no idea about it. And for the longest time, I saw them as beautiful rocks, but I had no clue what the power of them really is. And now when I visit her house and I go back, I'm like, oh, wow, you can feel the power now.
Yeah.
And this is something also too for the people that like, yeah, you know, I've had crystals, I don't feel anything. It's literally, we can tune into it, and it's a practice. It's a practice that we can learn. It's not something that some of us can intuitively pick it up right away. Usually, you know, when we already have like an inner gift and inner drawn that takes us there. But in other ways, we can also practice it. And sometimes it might be not the right time for you to go into crystals if you don't feel any connection to it. And there's no need to. But when you do feel called, I feel like allowing oneself to just trust and just let it be what it is. And even if it's just for now, just having a bracelet and setting a little intention, and that's it. And it doesn't have to be anything too deep. Maybe that's the way to start working with it. Or maybe just having a rock beside your bed while you're sleeping, you know, just like little pieces. And then at some point, you're going to start noticing, oh, wow, I do want to go deeper into this. And then the sacred ceremonies coming in, and you can bring in the moon and the different types of crystals and learning about them. And it's just such a fascinating topic, and such a fascinating tool that we can use in our spiritual practice, in our journey of life in general.
I notice a lot of people don't even really notice until their crystal's gone. So a lot of people that are starting with crystals, they start by wearing them because they're pretty. They start because it's an intention, or they may start because it was gifted to them, or this crystal will help you sleep. And then when it's gone, that's when I've noticed most people first start to notice it. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't wear my bracelet today. I had a totally different day. I was off, and I need my bracelet on. And so I think it's a subtle energy, but once we've tuned in and that energy's harmonized with our body, and then we take that energy away, our bodies are like, whoa, what just happened? I feel off. I don't feel in harmony right now.
Yeah, exactly. Both of you were talking about, I love how much storytelling we're doing in this episode, by the way. It made me think of last week, I had this thing happen. So In 2017, I went to my oldest friend's wedding shower. My mom and I went together. My mom and this woman's mom were best friends, and they were both pregnant with us at the same time. So her name is Ariana. Hi, Ariana, if you're listening to this. We grew up together. She's like my oldest friend. And when she got married, I was the weirdo that brought a few crystals. I went and got a few crystals for her and a money tree. And my mom was like, Britt, you can't give Ariana rocks for her wedding gift. And I was like, Mom, it means something to me and I think she'll like them. So leave me alone. And, I never really knew what the effects were of that. And actually just last week, she texted me and she's like, it was her birthday. And she was saying, I've just really been wanting to connect with myself more. And I remembered those crystals that you got me. And I don't even necessarily know what they mean, but I've been holding them and they just make me feel so good.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, you know what? That is the best kind of wedding gift, in my opinion.
Ever. Yeah.
Totally.
For sure. And it reminds me like what Hannah says, maybe you're not called at that time because there's a saying that the crystals call you. The crystals are emitting an energy, you're emitting an energy. So it's kind of like a magnet. So when you feel the call, you'll really feel the call because you'll be pulled to it. The crystals will be calling you, really. And clearly that's what happened to all three of us. We all were introduced at one point or another it started with just a stone or just a bracelet. And now it's turned into these crystal grids and all, it just kind of grows, it takes a practice. It takes taking the time to really just tune in and play with them.
Yeah. And the stories that you wind up harvesting over time too. And the transformation that you begin witnessing over your life.
Yeah. Which is why journaling is so important, I think, to go back and look. That's why I created a couple years ago, I think it was, a crystal journal so that when you start working with your crystals, you can write it all down and then you can have it to look back at. Because I wish I would have done that when I first started. Because there's so many little things that also happen. I mean, we have these big stories, but there's little synchronicities that we forget about,
I love that you mentioned that. I've been journaling about my crystal experiences since the beginning. And what I love about the planner, the Moon Power Manifestation Planner that Hannah created, is that she's got a little section in her planner that says signs and synchronicities. And don't you have one for rocks and crystals and minerals too?
Yes. Yeah.
So beautiful. So to track that progress, track those stories, because over time, I guarantee you'll want to go back and look at them.
For sure. And even tracking how, you might have been attracted to, say, rose quartz at one time. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, I'm not feeling rose quartz. I'm really feeling selenite right now at this time. And and then to look at what that crystal means. And then that'll almost kind of like a reading, right, Hannah? I mean, it almost is like giving yourself a little bit more of a deeper insight into yourself.
Yes, into your soul, into your body. I feel like it's such a feminine practice here because it's so in tune with the earth and with the water, with the soul, which is all feminine elements. And it's fascinating. And I love that we talk about journaling because that is part of that integration. Like, I feel like, when we can use crystals to manifest things, but then we also need to integrate our experiences and bring them back up into the higher realms where we say, okay, what does that mean? Because we can have all these different manifestation stories, but if we don't acknowledge them, if we don't honor them, if we don't see them as what it is and give them meaning, then it doesn't matter. Then it's nothing. Then it's lost. So the integration is so important together with the manifestation. And I feel like the integration part is almost like an honoring of the gift of life, of what life is giving us, these different synchronicities, these different blessings that are coming our way through different people, through events, through our inner emotions, through our inspirations, whatever is coming to us. And when we honor them and we see them and when we write them down, it always puts like another layer of honor to it. And this is real. This is truth. This is what happened. This is what I believe. This is my faith. And then we receive more of that. Because then life is like, oh, she honors my gifts. You know, it's like with your friend right now, Britt, where you said you give her the crystals to the wedding. If she were just to like throw those crystals away and be like, oh, that's super meaningless, I don't care, you wouldn't want to give her more of those things. You wouldn't want to open up more to her about, you know, other blessings that you want to give to her. But since she said, oh, I feel them and I honor them and I appreciate this, now you're in a position of like, oh, I want to give you more.
Right.
You know? I want to show you more of this world. And that's really what life is about when we start honoring and appreciating those different manifestation stories that we all have, because we're manifesting all the time, even if we're not consciously setting any intentions. Everything that's around in our world is manifested. And when we honor those stories, then life is like, yes, okay, cool. She's honoring it. She's appreciating it. I'm going to give her more of that.
Exactly. It's truly tapping into that divine flow, and we have access to it I love that you touched on that. So thank you for wording it exactly as you did, where everything is manifesting, whether we're conscious of it or not. And when we do choose to bring that conscious awareness into our lives on it like a daily level, and it can take some time too, especially if this is a new concept for you. It's like, it can be very overwhelming, almost feeling like you've only been seeing in black and white your whole life. And then you start seeing in color, but it's so true. And that is the magic. 'Cause I feel like I usually have these, like, it's almost like a just such massive energy when I start talking about practices like this, because I've had such transformative experiences with them. But then if I'm having a conversation with someone, it can just like bombard them and like blow their hair back. And I feel like I'm almost too much for people sometimes, which, you know, that's a part of my own path of learning how to just communicate so vulnerably all the time and directly from my heart space, because it's my truth. And going back to the way we were talking about allyship with crystals earlier, this is such a full circle moment, because I feel like when we do have these experiences that are so powerful, so transformative, so deep with integrity and intention and purpose and fulfillment and meaning, it is almost our duty. It is our responsibility to open these conversations and let people know, especially in the times that we're in right now. Stuff's wild right now. Stuff's crazy. It's chaotic. And I love using the word chaotic because we can see where everything is stemming from. It's actually very systematic, the way things are unfolding. But when we bring these conversations to life and let people know there is purpose and meaning, if you wish to bring purpose and meaning into your life, it's out there for you. It's so important for us to be those message bringers and to be letting people know, because so many are deeply depressed in a state of lack of meaning, lack of security, lack of faith, lack of hope for the future.
Wow. That's so beautiful. And I feel so called, Britt, after you shared that to integrate more, right? And to share more. Like we're called to.
Yes. So
beautiful.
So Laura, what would you say when someone listens to this episode and they're like, I want to start learning about crystals more? What would you recommend for them?
Well, I would first recommend for them to feel into what they're most drawn to, you know, and then to work with those. Or I would recommend starting with clear quartz. You know, I think that's one of the master healing crystals. It's quartz based, so it's a huge manifester. So that's a great crystal to start with. Or even, you know, like for example, I sell, other people do chakra bags, so you can get a little tumbled stone, one for each chakra. So you could start there. You could start with, I mean, there's so many different places. This is where you're going to really be called to tune in. But to give you some starting points to think about, clear quartz or amethyst, a quartz-based stone, is where I would start. A second start is selenite. I think would be a really good one. It's one of those stones that's very high vibrational. It doesn't really need to be cleansed. So there's not really a lot you need to do with it. But it's one of those stones when you're feeling heavy, you can just take it and run it over just your aura, your heart space, wherever. And it's really cleansing. So I think that's another great stone to start with.
Mm. And what are some offerings that you bring to the community and to the people?
Well, I mean, I make the jewelry, of course, for Will to Wow. I do crystal healings on people, which means laying on of the crystals. There's a little bit more entailed to that because I also do like a reading and a crystal grid for them as well. I have the journal, of course, and I started doing soul guidance sessions. Working with people more one-on-one. The teacher in me is coming out. I like to give them assignments and have them check in to empower them to kind of grow on their own. And I work with them that way.
That's cool. And can that be booked like online too, like for people that are non-local?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes. That's all online, the soul guidance sessions. Just like what we're doing right now, a Zoom call.
Wonderful. And then I think you also have like a test or something, or you give people recommendations what crystals are good for them depending on where they're at, right?
Yes. That's on my website, I believe. Right when you go, that would drop down the little quiz.
Yes. Shall we head into our Sacred Sister questions? So Laura, these are usually shorter format and you can just answer them in a little quick thing.
Okay.
So what does sacred mean to you?
Special, connecting to divine, connecting to my soul.
Beautiful. Who is a sacred sister to you, and what does it mean to have a sacred sister?
That is somebody that I can completely trust as I work through my stuff. That is a safe place to go where I can be completely vulnerable. I'm blessed to have a couple sacred sisters. So my friend Stacy and my friend Kat and my mom are my sacred sisters where I can go to work through my stuff.
I love that you mentioned your mom here. That's so cute.
Well, she was the one who actually introduced me to crystals when I thought she was just giving me a rock when I moved.
And what are some ways that you make something normal or mundane into something magical or sacred?
Play. I think by tapping into play, for sure, makes things a little bit more magical and sacred and opens us up to a deeper connection to source, to ourselves.
So beautiful. We traversed so many topics today. We just want to really extend so much gratitude and so much honor for you to sit down and open this deep, deep, deep conversation. There was so much wisdom in here, and I'm so excited to listen to it again.
I'm so excited to listen to it and to share it because I feel so honored that you guys asked me, and I've learned so much from both of you, and watching your journey, Britt, has just really moved me. I mean, speaking of rocks, my son Will, the rock from your mom, does not leave his bedside ever. So I always feel connected to you.
Oh, and my mom had such a special connection to William too.
Yeah, she did. I'm really glad that they were able to meet. They were supposed to meet. They were supposed to.
I know.
For sure.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. Oh, Laura, I love you.
We love you.
I love you guys too.
We love you. Thank you so much for sitting down and joining us today. Thank you for everyone who's still listening to this podcast now here at the very, very end. We hope that this was insightful for you. We hope that you're leaving here with questions, with curiosity, with inspiration, and we're so excited for the next time that we sit down with you. Thank you for joining us today.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Mwah. Have a good rest of your day.